What's cracking, people? It's your man, Cousin T, aka the Alpha Wingman, representing high-level technicians operating globally and beyond. So listen, today I wanted to cover a subject that is brought up often when women get together, and I would even venture to say almost every time, depending on the age group, when women get together. And this is the subject of pleasure and what it takes, how often friends that they know of who are not receiving pleasure, and at the end of the day, whose role or job it is to please a woman. Now, I know a lot of people already have in their minds what the answer to that is, but before we really dive into this particular subject, I want to play a clip from my favorite outlier, Miko Grimes. Now, if you recall, and I'll post a link down below, she was the case study that I presented when I did Octane Observations, basically a video series that covered my observations of BGS IBMOR's Octane model. Miko Grimes was the case study that I used as the intro video for the entire series. This is because she embodies what I have observed as the outlier prototype. And I know, just as a disclaimer, I am well aware and I realize that we are currently in a time of great change, great unrest, uncertainty. There's so many paradigms that are shifting all around us, seemingly every single day. I totally realize that. All right, now this is for my select guys specifically, select men. Okay, huddle up. Can you hear me? All right. I know that your phones have been ringing off the hook. I know that your text messages have been pinging like crazy. Your inboxes are flooded. Women are tripping you at the grocery store. Random women are approaching and asking the most asinine questions to get your attention. I understand that. This is because in a time of great uncertainty, even though a woman could be in a good place, she could have, her career still intact, working from home, remotely or whatever, her desire for pleasure, her desire for release, her desire to get off has been built up more than ever. There's the anxiety, the uncertainty of what the next day may bring. Being able to stimulate a release may be the type of cooling off that is necessary, even if temporarily, for a given circumstance. And that holds true not only for single women, but also married women, and women who are, in your rotation or in a situationship or whatever the nature of a relationship. That factor is still there now, more so than other times. And so the question comes up, whose job is it to please a woman? And this is the age-old question, and it goes back to how well a person knows themselves, how open and honest a person allows themselves to be in terms of communicating what they like, or even exploring what it is that they enjoy and what gets them to a place of release in an unjudgmental environment. But that is not often the case in the Western society. And, as liberal as we'd like to think we are in this modern space, there's so many women, especially younger women, who do not understand what it takes to bring about their own pleasure. And so that role is often placed into the hands of the man. And let's be clear, if you're on the Patreon side, member of the Hot House, you receive regular case studies and scenarios regarding how to interact, what the beginning is like, what the intimate portions of the interactions are like. And at the higher levels of the Patreon, I draw pictures. Well, I don't draw pictures. I provide pictures. But in any case, the average man who doesn't have extensive experience interacting with a diverse number of women is not necessarily going to know the methods and have his bearings when meeting a woman for the first time. And honestly, there are a lot of married men who don't have the depth of experience with a diverse pool of women in order to confidently be able to identify whether or not a woman has been pleased with whatever the interaction, whatever the performance, whatever the results of their intimate encounters have been. And so the question comes up again, whose job is it to please a woman? And for a quick answer, I want to bring in my favorite outlier, none other than Miko Grimes. Now, this clip comes from a discussion that she had with Charlamagne the God and Andrew Schultz on one of their podcasts. And she just gets right to the point regarding whose job that is.
I know how to make myself get off, and I also learned afterwards how to please somebody else. It don't. A fuck is 50 pumps. I keep telling people that it's 50 fucking pumps. If you can't get some shit done in 50 pumps, what are we trying to prove? Man, 2 songs, all I need. 2 songs.
So, gentlemen, do you see why she's my favorite outlier? Besides this discussion that she had, there's another video clip of her and her husband discussing a dynamic between them that she has figured out and sort of understood as a part of their sort of ritual, their routine, and their rhythm, where she's able to allow him to transmute their sensual energy into tangible results, including some career stat production. That's another video for another day. I may discuss it on the Patreon side, but I posted that particular sound clip from that interview just to show that the answer lies somewhere in between. And though the majority of the responsibility for a woman's pleasure rests within the woman's court, in her position, her level of maturity, her level of self-awareness, how comfortable she is with her own body, her physiology, and her ability to communicate what she does and does not like in that space. It is up to the man. Yes, gentlemen, it's up to you to provide the judgment-free environment that allows her to be comfortable. It is up to you to be comfortable enough in your own skin and in your ability to not only own your physical presence in that space, but also match or enhance the energy within that space. That is a key component to how successful the sensual exchange is going to ultimately be, and how it'll play out within the dynamic of whatever type of relationship that you wish to establish with the woman, whether it's a friendship, Benny, friends with benefits, a satellite situation, if she's a roster position, if she is your long-term relationship prospect, or if you're positioning her to become your future wife. This aspect of your relationship is critical because it's sort of the central interface of the communication aspect of your relationship. If you can't openly and honestly and comfortably discuss aspects of your sensual, intimate, and sexual aspects of your relationship, then you're going to have cracks that form in other areas of communication. And those cracks eventually begin to fissure, and they widen and they deepen and they become broader until you have a canyon that forms. And relationship coaches can explain better, but basically that canyon gets filled with all of the things left unsaid over the course of whatever relationship you have, including marriages. And that ultimately is what leads to the breakdown of that structure. Now, a few questions that a guy may ask when listening to that clip of Miko Grimes explain her get down would be first, okay, well, we see how you understand and you take control of how you get off, but what does it take to turn you on? What does that space look like? What does that image look like? Also, what type of pipe does it take to get her off? Now, my technicians already understand the various levels. FPS, that's all I gotta say. Beyond that, if the first round is sort of the benchmark or the standard for your sexual performance, what about the subsequent rounds? What about the follow-up? What about the afterglow? What about what happens in that space beyond that moment? Gentlemen, if you have your copy of the Seduction Scriptures, I'm going to refer you to section 605. That is entitled Free Her Body. Go ahead and take a look at that section. I cover in-depth sort of approaches to those questions, and that is ultimately something that I address on the Patreon side, and I have a video that's up right now addressing how to handle an outlier. Select men, pre-select men, non-select men. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. And as always, this is your man Cousin T, aka the Alpha Wingman, saying, stay sharp and mission focused.